Kamala Harris was the sacrificial lamb for the Cabal. She had no chance to win. Analyzing the role of Kamala Harris in the pursuit of power, a Machiavellian perspective. In the intricate and ruthless theater of politics, where power is both the ultimate prize and the most elusive treasure, characters are not always what they seem. With a critical lens inspired by the astute observations of Machiavelli, one may find in Kamala Harris's ascension to the vice presidency a masterful move, one that appears both sacrificial and calculated, designed to serve as a buffer to a fragile leadership, all while a cabal of globalists maneuver behind the scenes. The sacrifice and the purpose of the lamb. In Machiavellian terms, the concept of a sacrificial lamb is not a gesture of true sacrifice or martyrdom. Rather, it serves a strategic purpose: to deflect scrutiny, shift blame, and embody weakness to bolster the power of those unseen. Harris's role as vice president can be viewed through this lens. Her position operates as a focal point for criticism and misdirection. In this way, her apparent sacrifice is not so much a loss but a carefully measured trade. In the wake of failed attempts to neutralize their adversaries, including Trump, the globalist elite, a shadowy consortium more invested in shaping the world to their ideals than in preserving national interests, required a new method to ensure continuity. Harris, then, is positioned not as a leader but as a pawn, one whose perceived loyalty to her party, and ostensibly to Biden, covers a deeper agenda. Her elevation to the vice presidency under a president who demonstrates questionable competence is no accident. Rather, it is a buffer for the true power brokers who seek to hide their manipulation behind a facade of democratic process and lawful governance. The strategic weakness of Biden and the real seat of power. To understand why Harris was chosen, one must look at the state of leadership in the White House. Biden, a leader whose moments of vigor are as rare as his lapses are frequent, serves as an empty figurehead. His limitations in both health and decisiveness are no secret. Yet, this very weakness is essential to the plan. As Machiavelli would suggest, an ineffective ruler may actually benefit those pulling the strings. His incapacity demands the need for a shadow government that operates seamlessly, moving with agility and intent where he cannot. Harris, in this schema, is less a successor in waiting than an insurance policy, a shield against any direct confrontation with the cabal's true interests. To maintain control, this cabal requires not only a leader but a symbol, a facade that reflects power while being manipulable. Biden's inability, then, is a feature, not a bug, allowing the architects behind the scenes to run the game without disruption. Harris, chosen for her loyalty and ambition, was unlikely to disturb this balance. She, too, plays her role, and the act of governing is left to those outside the public eye. To the globalists, any semblance of democracy or transparency is secondary to their ultimate purpose: a world reshaped in their image, a slavelandia of their own making. The hidden hand, globalist intentions, and the quest for control. Global dominance is an ambitious goal, and for those who seek it, democratic norms and individual freedoms become hindrances to be subverted. In the Machiavellian playbook, ambition must often be disguised as virtue, and what appears as altruistic governance is, in fact, the slow tightening of the reins of control. This cabal of globalist forces operates with such intent, adopting the cloak of humanitarian ideals, while aiming to centralize power under their control. Their methods are diverse but always cunning. They leverage crises, economic, environmental, and social, to justify sweeping measures that erode individual freedoms in favor of centralized authority. The figureheads they choose, such as Harris, serve as both a face for their agenda and a buffer against public suspicion. Any backlash against the administration is skillfully redirected toward these political actors, preserving the cabal's invisible grip. Under this guise, they create policies not for prosperity but for containment, fostering dependence on a system that promises security while quietly enforcing compliance. Each crisis, whether real or manufactured, furthers their goal, and each failure of visible leadership only tightens the hold of those who rule from behind the curtain. Toward Slavelandia, the future in the cabal's vision. The final objective, for the most calculating leaders, is the creation of an order in which all opposition is not only quelled but rendered impossible. In this system, the freedoms of the many are willingly surrendered, sacrificed at the altar of safety and global cooperation. Harris, as vice president, serves as a transitional figure, a cog in the machinery of a broader vision. A world where control is absolute and individual freedoms are relics of the past. Here, democracy is little more than a mask for the new order, a slavelandia where every movement is monitored, every decision managed, and every rebellion crushed before it can arise. As Machiavelli might observe, the cunning ruler does not rely on brute force, but rather on the willing submission of his subjects. This is the true game of the globalist cabal, to render dissent meaningless and autonomy a distant memory. Harris's rise, then, is a carefully engineered pawn move on a grand chessboard. It is not meant to lead the people, but to keep them docile and distracted as their world is reshaped to serve the ambitions of those who worship power above all else. Conclusion. Viewed through the lens of Machiavellian analysis, Kamala Harris's vice presidency is no accident. It is a deliberate maneuver by the unseen architects of a new global order, one that seeks to manipulate and control under the guise of democracy. Harris's sacrifice, whether voluntary or coerced, is instrumental in masking the weakness of an administration run by forces more cunning and less visible than the public dares to imagine. As the machinery of this cabal moves ever closer to realizing its dystopian vision, those who understand the true nature of power would do well to observe closely, question deeply, and prepare for a future where freedom is not given but must be fiercely defended.